topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Experts, where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. I've got a really great treat for you. We are going on TikTok. You will see a lot of, I would say probably the first 3 to 5 minutes of many of our shows. We just finalized the deal the other day, and it's going to bring us hundreds and thousands of new viewers and listeners. We are so excited about our involvement with TikTok. Hey, today we got a great show. We're talking about debt, and that is not a good subject, but you know what? We're here. We're going to educate you. We're going to show you how we have an expert that can solve your debt problems, because you should not try to do this yourself. So we have, and they've been with us for a long time, attorney John Mastriani. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. John, we've been together for a long time. You have helped so many people with debt problems. And that's what we're going to talk about today, from credit card debt to bank loans, student loans, foreclosures, all of them. John, first of all, tell everybody about your background and your firm.
Okay, well, I've been litigating and a lawyer in Texas since 1989, and around late 1999, 2000 time frame, someone came to me and they asked me if I would help them with a credit card debt. It was a Citibank lawsuit, and we went in there and we won. So the next thing we knew, we got another friend and another guy, and eventually we hooked up with some folks and got a gigantic practice going. We probably done 5,000-10,000 credit card cases, whether they be arbitrations, which they don't do much anymore, or the regular type of debt cases. Credit card, we do student loans, we do repossessions, we do foreclosures. And recently we've been doing, and I didn't put this on your list, so I'm sorry, but recently they've been appointing what's called the receiver here in Texas. So if you're getting your bank accounts frozen by somebody and you don't know why, it's probably a judgment. And we've been quite successful in getting rid of these receiverships or settling the debt even after the judgments.
John, I guess that's the best thing to do. Let's start right there with receivership. Explain in more detail about that.
Okay, what happens, Steve-O, is a lot of times people, they don't even know that they've got a judgment. Sometimes people, they'll put their head in the sand and they'll forget they got sued and this judgment will appear, or they might be waiting for the court to send them a court date after they've answered the lawsuit. But being a novice, and I don't say that bad, I don't know how to fix a car or cut hair or anything. There's a lot of areas of the law I wouldn't want me representing myself in. But with respect to this particular aspect of the law, you need an expert. So people will answer the lawsuit and they'll think, okay, I'm waiting for the court date to come. And that court date never comes because usually, 99% of the time, the creditor has a lawyer. Actually, I've never seen the creditor not have a lawyer, and they know how to do tricks up front. So even if you do diligently answer the lawsuit, by the time you get to the court date, you show up and you're told, oh, this case been over with for a few months. We got a summary judgment on you, or we got a summary disposition if it's a JP court case, and they basically beat you on the paperwork. Or you might show up and be ready to go, and that hurts you too, because the whole way we help the people with getting out of the debt is we avoid the business record affidavit. We keep the stuff out of the evidence. So if you're there yourself, they're just going to ask you, did you make these charges? And you're going to end up having to tell the truth versus not having the records in evidence, so we can help you. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think people need to pay their debts. People need to do what's correct. But sometimes it's not correct to pay some of these credit card debts because it's just so high, 30% interest. They do this, they do that to you. They do one thing, they do another. They bait you in and switch. So I know I got off topic a little, but there's so many tricks.
No, you're fine.
There's so many tricks that they get this judgment on you. And then they call me up and their bank account's frozen. Their 85-year-old father's bank account's frozen because he put the kid on the card or on the bank account. So when he passed away, it was a paid on death account. And the receiver is a very, very powerful thing. They can come and they can take your take the money out of your pocket if they want to. So these receiverships, they weren't very prevalent here in Texas. I don't know about the other states. I don't pretend to be an expert, but all of a sudden in Texas, all these older judgments, 5, 10 years old, have been, coming back to light, and people's bank accounts and stuff are being frozen on things that they didn't think they had, even the judgment. So we know how to contact the receiver. Coincidentally, all the receivers I had the pleasure of trying lawsuits with when they were not receivers and beating them most of the time. So I do have access to them, and I do have access to their phone numbers to speak with them. And a lot of times these judgments weren't done properly. The notice might have went to the wrong address, things like that. Like you had asked me, how could they send the notice to the wrong address? And they send the notice to the wrong address because they're debt buyers. And the debt buyer is going to buy an older account, and they're going to sue you where you applied for the debt, not necessarily where the last bank statement went. And these are all kinds of things that just a horrible thing with a receiver. You don't want to deal with them yourself. Your bank account's frozen. Your relatives are ready to kill you because you could put their account on your name on the account, and it's just awful.
John, what we're trying to do with a show like this is to give people a level playing field, because the other side's definitely going to have an attorney, and they need a firm like yours that specializes in this area. So at least they've got a fighting chance, because I am sure you have seen some awful cases that try to handle it themselves before you got to the case.
Yes, I mean, a lot of them, are, well, we had a 80-year-old woman came in the other day that allegedly went to a credit union and bought a truck. So a lot of times, there's identity theft between families, where they don't want to turn the other family member in and they get stuck. In this particular case, this woman didn't buy the truck. This woman can't even see, let alone drive a car. But they went after her. They filed a lawsuit against her. They didn't do their diligence. They have to do their diligence. Maybe the majority of the time there isn't a defense. But in this case, had this woman's family not gotten a hold of me, and 80 years old, they don't have tremendous resources, but we worked with her and we worked with the family to make it affordable. We prevented a $54,000 judgment from occurring. And now we've actually got a lawsuit against the credit union for taking advantage of her. I mean, they said, Steve-O, that she was there. She filled out the paperwork and she bought the car. She filed a police report saying she doesn't know what the heck's going on. And rather than at least listening to her or trying to investigate it, they filed a motion for summary judgment on her as soon as they possibly could, saying, hey, here's the paperwork. She loses. And summary judgment is a very technical thing. I mean, I've do thousands of them and we don't lose them. I mean, obviously you don't win everything, but we don't lose them the 99% of the time. But a human being is going to show up at the courthouse on a hearing date. They don't know they have to file this thing 7 days in advance. They don't know how to object to the affidavit on the other side. And the judge, as sympathetic as they want to be, they still got to, follow the law. And the law doesn't necessarily help the person. There's so much that's immoral but still legal in the system today, and it's a shame. But that's why they need somebody like us. And that's why we make it affordable for them to come.
You and I have been together with a show about 3 years now. And a lot of times you and I will talk and you will tell me about cases that you've handled. And I got to tell you, we have other debt companies around the country. John is our expert for the Houston area.
Well, Texas.
I got to tell you, I truly mean this, John. John is actually probably one of the finest experts in the field of debt collection. He knows this backwards and forwards. And I'm always so impressed with the things that John comes up with for his clients. John, what's the difference between your firm and a debt settlement company?
Well, the major difference is our firm is a law firm. So if, the lawsuit occurs, we're going to be able to defend you. We'll be able to help you from start to finish. We also, have relationships with the other law firms. Not that the debt settlement companies might not, but we have relationships with the other law firms and the other creditors where we know, what we're going to expect, what court you're going to end up in, and how the law is going to go. But most importantly, you're not a number with us. We're small. These debt settlement companies are huge. You're going to talk to me on the phone or my other associate lawyer, finest count, a CPA and a retired CPA and a master's in tax law. So you're going to talk to a lawyer and you're going to talk to somebody qualified, not just somebody with intake. You're not going to be a number. And Texas is a very, very difficult state to collect a judgment in. These debt settlement companies are going to settle on the national average, where Texas is probably one of the hardest states to collect a judgment from. So you need a Texas lawyer. You need somebody to come in, somebody that's regulated by the bar that can help you. And also, we don't take your money up front. These debt settlement companies, they charge you a certain percentage and hold your money for you. You might need that money for your family. You might need that money for somebody else. We don't hold your money for you. We tell you how much money you're going to need to set aside, and then you do it yourself.
John, it is so important. I want listeners right now to imagine this. Imagine you trying to handle this yourself, going up against a company, probably a law firm that does this all the time. I am telling you, you don't stand a chance. If you have an attorney like John Mastriani representing you, and the other side knows he's an attorney that specializes in debt management, I got to tell you, I just know the outcome's going to go so much better for you if you've got John representing you.
And another thing that's very important, you got to hold those judges in check. I respect the decorum of the court and stuff, but I'm not going to let a judge just ramrod me, go, yes, Your Honor, thank you, Your Honor, and walk out the door. We're going to stand there, we're going to fight, and we're going to advocate. We're going to make sure that they understand what the proof is or the lack of proof is in our defense is. And if we lose, we're going to appeal them, and we're going to hold them to that higher standard. I mean, we do lots of appeals. There's a lot of cases that I've actually appealed and made the law on. So I do know how to handle these things. And it's a shame when you go in there on your own because you just don't understand it. People think, well, gee, it's expensive to hire a lawyer. It's more expensive to not hire one because you'll have that receiver freezing your bank account. You'll have your life completely turned upside down, and you've got to hit this and be proactive about it up front. But without having to sweat the debt, so to speak, you hire somebody that can help you. And we have payment plans, believe me, and they're a lot better than the settlement offers you're going to get by yourself from the credit card companies.
John, do you remember telling me the story about I think it was an elderly couple, which you get a lot of, who bought these solar systems? Do you remember that show we did?
Oh, yeah. That's another type of debt, and you got to be very careful with because they can actually put a lien on your house because these solar panels are part of the house. You get these folks running out here selling solar panels. And all I've got to say is don't buy them. I mean, I'm not an engineering expert by any means, but I do know this. If you're paying a couple $100 a month in your electricity, or say even $500 a month, and these solar panel companies tell you that they're going to get rid of 100% of your electrical bill. Okay, that sounds great. That's nice. So 5 times 12 is 6,000. The average price for these solar panels is about 50,000. So it's going to take you 8 years to break even. Now, who wants to wait 8 years to break even? And what's more importantly than that, we had one the other day. This was the worst one. This is even worse than the other one. The one Steve was referring to, the gentleman was in their 80s. Their house was worth about $110,000. Their electrical bill was $200 a month, and they charged them $74,000. So the guy would have been, close to 119 before he got it paid back. Just terrible.
But you got them out of that, though, right?
We went to court, yeah, and we proved that that was just an unconscionable situation to begin with. But it still scared the poor people, and it's a terrible thing to do to the people and have that happen.
Explain. I know right now there are so many ads out there, John, about credit repair companies and how they can, take your credit and get it up to 750. What is the difference in what you do and what those companies do?
Number one, I really get you out of debt. I mean, these credit repair companies, they're not helpful. They might knock it off for a month or two, and they might slide you into being able to qualify for a loan. But if you still owe all these other debts, then have they really helped you, or have they given you something else that's going to hurt you? And I tell you what, if you take a take nothing judgment that John Mastriani got for you when you got sued by a creditor and send that to Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, I guarantee you they'll take that debt off there. So we don't dispute whether the charge should or shouldn't be there. We actually dispute the amount of the debt, or if the debt's actually even owed.
Well, we just got two texts in, one from Friendswood and one from Galveston. They want to know how they can afford your services.
Number one, if you're struggling to pay the debt and you're paying an average of 4% a month on the debt, and you're never going to get that paid back. Say, I'm not saying everybody isn't, but say you're not going to be able to get it paid back. And all you're doing is paying the interest every month. And it's going to take you 20 years to pay that debt back. Okay. The best thing to do is to stop paying the debt and trying to figure out a way to pay down the debt. And what we do is we encourage people, if they can't afford it or they can't afford to get out of the debt right away, to just stop, because you're not going to be paying it for 20, 30 years and ever getting any progress. When you do that, you take the money that you've not been paid towards interest that doesn't really reduce principal, and you save it towards trying to pay down the debt. Some of it, you can use towards an attorney. I think it's essential, as we've been saying earlier, to do it, because if you don't think you can afford to pay the lawyer, imagine when you don't have a bank account anymore because it's frozen and they're going after you for this entire amount. Now, yes, stop paying the debt. It's going to hurt your credit score, and you're in a situation where you have to take the worst of two evils. Would you not want to cure cancer because you're afraid of getting sick from the chemotherapy? Some people might want to be more comfortable at the end. It's something you have to determine and decide. But we offer payment plans. We work with people. And the beauty of our services is everybody gets the same thing. Whether you got $100,000 debt or you're being sued for $2,000 in JP court, we've got all the same paperwork that we perfected over 20 years of kicking the butt out of these creditors and keeping them from going forward. So you're getting one heck of a defense without having to spend a bunch of money. And we do work with people all the time on payment.
Okay, let's go to our next text. Great show. I'm glad you're offering a show like this. I'm in Temple, Texas, listening right now. Does your firm handle somebody in Temple, Texas?
I think it's the 903 area code, but yes, we have a statewide practice, and we work with different things. I mean, I can't guarantee I would go to, depending on what the debt is. But you give us a call, it's a free consultation. We figure it out. We don't charge for travel and things like that. And the majority of the creditors, lawyers, are in Dallas or San Antonio anyway. There are very few in Houston, believe it or not. So we do know who to contact and what we need to figure out in order to help you. And then if we got to drive over there, we'll go over there for the trial.
John, give everybody your phone number while they're asking.
Okay, it's 713-665-1777. Now, we have several phone numbers because all these web gurus keep making me give them different number for tracking and stuff. So the best way to do it is go to TexasDebtDefense.com. Very simple. That's what we do. We defend debt in Texas. TexasDebtDefense.com. And you'll see a plethora of information there, and give us a call. We'll have a lawyer speak with you, usually myself, and give you your options, because everybody's different. Go ahead.
Yes. And don't hold this against John, but he's a big Houston Texan fan. But don't hold it against him, though.
No, exactly. And that's the one thing that I have gotten over the years. I'm also a Giant fan, and I get a lot of the Dallas creditor lawyers to take me to the Giants games. So when they play the Cowboys.
John, let's talk about bankruptcy. When's the right time a person should think about bankruptcy?
If you're not in an occupation that precludes you from going bankrupt, not that it's against the law, but the stockbroker can't go bankrupt, or certain people, because they'll lose the ability to sell different types of stock, or the firm won't have them bankrupt. But it's something that's very rarely needed in Texas. If you can get a full bankruptcy discharge, that's nice, but you still have the stigma and different things going forward usually. There's also something they do called the Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and that's really not what people are thinking it is. You're going to go in there and you're going to get your debts restructured. So instead of paying $500 a month, you're going to pay $250 a month for ever and ever. And they're going to have a federal bankruptcy court or trustee overseeing what's going on. But we work hand in hand with the bankruptcy attorneys and vice versa, and we receive a lot of them referrals, because it's not in their best interest to go bankrupt in Texas, because as we alluded to earlier, it's very difficult to collect a judgment here in Texas.
Once a person has filed bankruptcy, is there is it 10 years before you can file bankruptcy again, or is it 7 years?
I think it's 7 years. I'm not positive. I refer and work with bankruptcy lawyers, and I do lawsuits in bankruptcy court, or have done them in the past, but I'm hired by a bankruptcy lawyer for an offensive type of suit to get money back into the estate. I'm not the best when it comes to bankruptcies to ask all those questions.
John, what is the difference between an original creditor and a debt buyer?
Original creditor is like Citibank, Bank of America, Discover. Original, in other words, they're the ones that originated the debt. Originate. Then there's an industry where these credit card companies decided, or other debt companies decided, they'll sell their debt to a debt buyer, as you heard, debt buyer. And then these people will step into the shoes of the original creditor trying to collect the debt. The biggest problem you got with the debt buyer, or the debt buyer has, is they don't have all the paperwork, because the original creditor is packaging the debt. They're selling it to them, usually for about 5 or 6 cents on the dollar, and washing their hands of it. And this is why you need a lawyer too, because I see so many people losing to a debt buyer, and a debt buyer offering them such a high settlement. A debt buyer is only in the game for 7-8% of the debt, but yet they're settling for 50-60%, making a killing. So they got two things you're doing wrong if you don't know what you're doing. Number one, you're settling too high. And number two, you're settling it all because usually they don't have the paperwork to prove up the debt. And they're going to give you only a limited amount of the paperwork to make it look like they're proving up the debt. But the original creditor does not want to get sued. They don't want to get into trouble after they get rid of this debt. So they usually supply an affidavit, which you got to know how to get and fight for. And the affidavit says that they're not going to guarantee the debt that they sold is collectible, has had the law followed, or is even accurate. And you can sell it back to them if you'd like to. And this affidavit is very, very rare that people get. We get it all the time. And you show that in front of the judge, and you go, okay, the guy that sold the debt's not sure this paperwork's correct. How can this debt buyer think it's correct? And boom, out the door you go with a take nothing judgment, or they'll dismiss the case the second you get that in evidence, or get it from them to put in evidence.
Funny, we just had an attorney who's listening to the show. He said, I am a longtime listener. Your guest expert you have on today is right on. That's a nice compliment, John.
It is. It is.
That is really a nice compliment. Maybe you might want to let us know your name. He said he's a Houston attorney. What about, let's talk about judgments, John. If someone has a judgment against them, is there anything you can do to help them?
Well, yeah, that's the first thing, as we were talking the receivership earlier, which is predicated on a judgment. But yes, I mean, if we get the judgment within a certain amount of time, they come to us after the judgment, we can file a motion for new trial, or we can, if it's within 4 years, file an equitable bill of review, which you're actually suing the creditor to show that the judgment was taken improperly. There's two types of judgments. There's a void judgment and avoidable. Avoidable judgment is one that you need to go to the court with and bring a bill of review, where a void judgment is something where you were never served to begin with. They say they served you at a certain address and you were in Guam at the time, so that there's never any subject matter jurisdiction. But we do these all the time. We had a huge fight with a student loan company that took a judgment on some folks, and they weren't actually served with the lawsuit, and we had to go do this bill of review. They didn't even know they had a judgment on them till about 6 years after the judgment occurred. We did the bill of review, and we were successful, and it doesn't get rid of the lawsuit, but it gets rid of the judgment, and they have to start again. And we do that a lot. That helps people's credit too, because there's no judgment on there. There is the bill of review removes the judgment. Sometimes we settle. Sometimes it's so old the creditor goes away, and sometimes we have to go to court and fight them conventionally.
John, we didn't discuss this, but do you do business debt also?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of business debt. That's how I originally started. I didn't want to go to the workforce yet, Steve-O. So I talked my father into letting me go to NYU for a year, and I got a master's in securities and corporate law. Of course, he loved it too because he got to go sleep in the dorm room with me and not have to pay those expensive New York City hotels.
I'll bet.
But we do it. We know how to structure debt. We've recently done a sale of a $12 million company, so we do business debt. We know how to set up the entities to make your judgment proof. It's not all just the consumer FDCPA things, and we know how to raise money and fund and basically, teach you how to hold your assets in a certain way that'll help you lower tax liability, which of course the biggest debt of all a lot of people face is tax debt, and they're one of the tougher debt collectors to deal with, but we handle all aspects of that.
What kind of problems do you see businesses getting into?
Well, the biggest problem the businesses get into is there's a bunch of folks out there. I'm going to, I don't know if it's proper or not, but Ameris Bank, they do a lot of help in funding of these businesses where they'll give them a loan, but the loan is so short term to bail them out, and they've got to have this funding over and over, and they keep getting these short-term loans here, and they're paying points on the loan. In other words, you get a $100,000 loan at 18% interest, but they only give you 90,000 of it. Or then when they renew the loan, they call them service charges rather than interest. And if you really re-amortize it, you're getting into that situation. And what's worse about them is, remember, we talked about Texas being a difficult state to collect a judgment in. Ameris Bank, I've looked them up. The farthest west they are is Georgia, but they do all their litigation in LA. So
how strange.
It's just so and under the laws of those states, and they're trying to get around some of the homestead protections we have in Texas and different things. So if you're a business and your rate of return is 10, 15% off your products, don't go borrowing at 30 or 40%. Just stay small, slowly build. Don't spend too much money on advertising. Don't get that beautiful palace of an office where the landlord is going to charge you 50 or give you 50 grand worth of, improvements to your office, and then amortize it over your 60-month loan or lease payment, because what he's going to do is it's going to be too high for you to make the payments. It's going to boot you out after a few months, and then he's got a nicer space to sell at a higher rate of leasing. That's another one we see. Not paying the taxes, not paying the sales tax, not having the proper characterization of things, not having solid contracts, not, having different shell corporations. One company owns the trucks, leases it to the company that brokers the trucks. They don't do things like that. And they just need some good sound advice. And a lot of these businesses they teach us a lot of things, so it goes both ways.
John, you've been doing this for a long time. And, I go to the grocery store and I cannot believe what it costs to go there. I go to the gas station. It's just crazy. Everything is more expensive now. We have a president that's telling us the economy is great, it's growing, but you're in the debt business. Are things different now than they used to be? I just see so many more people in debt now than ever before.
There are a lot more people in debt now. We've got a lot of them you're talking about things to avoid, you don't necessarily need that brand new car all the time. I learned this the hard way when I was younger. If they even changed the bumper on the particular model car I liked, the next year I had to have it. Now I've learned, you don't need a lot of these things. And, and it's terrible because they're baiting people with these cars. Get this car or the interest-free financing, 36 months interest-free financing if you buy today. And they're killing you because if you're late one payment, they re-amortize that whole thing at 29% interest. Things are expensive. You go to buy, in the old days, it was a 15% tip at the restaurant, and the frugal old Italians would never tip on the tax. I was never that way. But now you go to the restaurant, the bill is 3 times as high as normal, and they give you a dirty look when they hand you that little thing, and that machine, and you got to pick, and it starts at 18, 22, and 25%. And they're handing you a machine. Nobody takes cash anymore. If you got $100 bill in your wallet, you know that you spent, $70 if there's only $30 left. With these cards and stuff, you don't realize it. And it's just, it's difficult to keep up. I gave my girlfriend $100 and told her, okay, use this. And when you're out of it, let me know. So I keep seeing money going out of the account and I'm going, why? No one takes cash. So I ended up giving her $100 for no reason. And it's difficult, and it's just, and no one's out there to really help you. They're to burn you, churn you, and burn you.
Imagine what's going on in California now with the minimum wage now. It's $25 an hour. That
unless you work for Panera. Yes, unless you work for Panera Bread, because that's not considered a fast food restaurant. And coincidentally, that gentleman happens to give the governor a lot of money, So yes, if you bake bread or make donuts, you're not a fast food restaurant under that new minimum wage law. So you can still pay $7 or whatever the minimum is. Yeah.
John, I want people, first of all, to write your number down. I want people to have your number. It is so important that you have someone like John representing you. And I'm telling you, don't try to handle this yourself thinking you're going to save yourself some money, because I guarantee you it's going to cost you a lot more in the long run. John, at least John is. Go ahead, John.
Oh, it's about to cost you more money. I know we're wrapping up here. But one poor gentleman, he turned it around and he spent an extra $35,000 on the solar panel deal to get his interest rate lowered from 9% to 4.9%. Totally reasonable. But he wasn't going to hold the house for 30 years. So he wants to sell the house now, and he's out that extra $35,000 he paid for up front for the interest rate reduction. So there's things to come, not just when you're in debt, but when you're going to buy something or do debt, to ask us about, because we can help you and we can give you these pitfalls and teach you those things. Because believe me, he'd rather have his $35,000 than 4.9% interest rate for only 2 years. We're trying to look into a Truth in Lending Act thing with that, but I haven't been able to find it yet.
If it's there, you will. John, you will find it. Let's give everybody your phone number.
713.
Your phone number and your website again.
Okay. TexasDebtDefense.com. TexasDebtDefense.com, 713-665-1777. Get your cell phone out and plug the number in, 713-665-1777.
John Mastriani, attorney John Mastriani. And like I said, we'll be showing the first part of the show starting next week on TikTok. And you can always go to iHeart or YouTube and you can see today's show. John, thank you so much. And we'll see you again next month.
Well, you heard me this month. You'll see me next month. I'll be ready to get on with the proper camera and stuff. But thank you.
Okay,
you're handsome
buddy.
enough. You don't need me on there too. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That's attorney John Mastriani, one of the top debt management firms, I think, in the United States. That's it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.